NearForm Research was formed to really give a home to the leading edge experimentation and open source projects that NearForm has always done. But really, we wanted to formalize it, really drive a process for, how we identify things that we want to work on, how we contribute to the open source community, focus on things that are really good for the ecosystem, identify needs, identify trends, identify things that'll really drive the entire community forward. NearForm exists within a ecosystem. So by driving the health and the vitality of that entire ecosystem, we make new opportunities for NearForm and all of our customers to do more interesting things, right? And solve more interesting problems. In the enterprise, there's so much of the enterprise that is built on open source. There's so much value that is being derived from open source, but not a lot of that value is actually making it back to the open source community itself, especially to the maintainers, the authors, and those kind of things. With NearForm, it really is a corporate imperative, and particularly with NearForm Research, that we want to give back, right? We want to be contributing. We don't want to just be taking, right?
We've been going on about this idea about performance for a very, very long time, and for a lot of that time, it has been about code and code performance and system performance. But as an idea, we've really expanded it out to look at the entire software development lifecycle, organizational performance, the performance of code going into CI/CD pipelines and so on. So we're trying to broaden it out and broaden out the idea that you start with performance as your core metric. A huge amount of benefits can just flow from that. Performance is something that should be at the heart of everything you do, whether your organizational performance of your teams, of individuals, at a cultural level, but also looking at what you're doing to prevent bad code or slow code going into production and slowing down and having business impact. So going from that idea of code performance to thinking more about the impacts that it has and really how you can flip it on its head and do more for yourself as a company. We don't want NearForm Research to be this kind of closed group of people burrowing away in a corner working on these things in isolation. We want it to be something where we're working with the various communities that are out there. We're working with other companies, other groups who have shared interests in these ideas. So in some cases, we'll be leading, thought leading and so on. In other cases, we'll be contributing. But in every case, we want to broaden it out into a much wider ecosystem that we're all benefiting from. Bangle.js is a perfect example of the type of open collaboration that we intend to do as we continue on in NearForm Research. We didn't create Bangle.js. Gordon from Esprino didn't create Bangle.js. It's something that grew together. It grew from our experience of doing previous badges at our own events. And if you look at something like the Esprino project, it's far more than Gordon. It's his community, it's us and our communities, and really coming together to create something that's really never been done before. And then you tie in the fact that we have TensorFlow Lite for microcontrollers on there. None of that and none of those integrations would have been possible without it being open source and all of these people collaborating together. So we think it's an ideal example of what we're about as a group.
Another one of the projects that we're working on is the sandbox Node. And basically what this is improving the security of Node when it is running on client devices. The Chrome browser is an example. It's multi-process, right? So when you run each tab that you run, it's running in a separate process, and those are secure, right? They can only do so many things. We're actually working on porting that model to Node, so that when we launch a child process in Node, it is secure. It limits what you can do. There's other aspects to that of what we're doing within Node and really driving the internals of Node to make them far more secure. The industries that we're looking at initially are primarily around the financial services sector. And the reason for this is the demands of that sector are particularly around security and performance are particularly rigid, right? By focusing on a particular area, we think that we can really drive innovation, but keep it focused rather than going too broad with too many things. And then once we perfect it there, once we're sure we get it, then we start expanding it out to other things. Yeah, some of the projects we've worked on, there's the quick implementation. So right now, the IATF is working on this new version of HTTP3 and its new version of the protocol that underlies HTTP. For so many years, it's been TCP based, and there's been a number of technical issues with that. They're really going through and defining a whole new subsystem. As they're working on the standard, our team has been working on the implementation of that standard specifically for Node. And again, that's just, the ecosystem needs it, the community needs it, so that's what we're going to do there.
So Clinic.js is a good example of something we have been working on already, but we want to make the next leap forward with it and broaden its appeal to a wider range of kind of technology people within organizations. When we kicked off Clinic in 2017, we originally were focused on the needs of developers and a lack of tools they had to analyze specifically Node.js performance issues, but also to be able to understand what was happening in their code in terms of slow performance or general performance issues. So we created a suite of tools for them. In some cases, targeted at less experienced developers. In other cases, deeply complex tools to enable experts to understand what was going on. But they were developer focused, and what we want to do now with Clinic is really broaden out the audience for those who can use it, and particularly making it equally powerful but simpler to use for those different audiences. So a good example would be, rather than it just being during develop time, you could use Clinic in a production environment to say, actually, no, that code isn't going live to production. It doesn't meet our performance requirements. So that's really, one of the key aspects of where we want to go with the tool in the coming year. So if any of the projects we're working on in NearForm Research are of interest to you and you're interested in collaborating with us, we'd really love to hear from you and talk more.